For example, not yet adequate would be worth 1 point, and adequate 2, proficient 3, and excellent would be worth 4 points. So if, for example, in the communication section, you've highlighted 2 phrases for each group. Okay, so that could be worth a possible 4 points each, so that would be a total of 8 points that the communication or presentation section would be worth. Then in another section, like the procedural knowledge section there in the middle, that's actually sort of the bulk of the project. So that in that area, you might have highlighted something like 7 or even 8 different phrases throughout there, and each of those would be worth up to 4 points each. So that section might be worth 28 or even up to 32 points. So it has a heavier weighting already built in, and their contribution might only be adequate, so they might not get all those points, but that's a good way to translate a rubric into a numerical format, and in the end you can give your percentage to your students based on something really concrete. In addition, there's always a student self-assessment sheet in the teacher resource, and this purpose here is to encourage self-reflection. So they want to reflect on their own learning, understand their strengths, understand their weaknesses, which research has shown to improve student learning. As a teacher, you can also look at this and sort of to see if, did the group work equally? Did somebody do more work than another? Should they all receive an equal mark on the project? So lastly, small group. Oh, sorry, the last one in the small group section is the puzzle it out. There's one of these in a chapter, and the idea is that they're a game or a puzzle, and they're a lot more fun. They typically work well in small group or partner situations. Make It Real works really well here because often you can really make them concrete. You can bring in objects, you can reenact it, and use that to solve the problem. When you're asking the students to work in the groups, a really simple cooperative learning strategy called numbered heads together can help ensure accountability again. So this is basically if you had students in a group of 4, let's say, they would number off. So student 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you would cue the students, okay, I want you to put your heads together and work on a solution for this puzzle it out. Make sure that all of you can explain your group's process. And then when they've had enough time to work on it, you would call it, okay, say all the 3s. I want all the 3s to share what your group came up with. And even if they don't have a solution to the puzzle it out, or if it's incorrect, they can still share, okay, this is what we thought of, this is what we tried, this was our process. Of course, the 3s are the ones that are targeted in that example, but you might want to ensure that the 1s and the 2s and the 4s get targeted throughout the remainder of your lesson. So here, the Puzzle It Out Knights of the Round Table, it would be easy to make this real because there's 5 people sitting in 5 chairs in age order, so you could have groups of 5, put their chairs in a circle, sit in age order, number off 1 to 5, and then you can ask, okay, this time I want the 2s to share, what did your group come up with? So partner work, the activities are there's lots of them found throughout the text, usually several per 2 or more per chapter section. They're hands-on tasks with real-world context, and they're definitely collaborative, so partner or even small groups sometimes. And they also, especially like the projects, they're well supported in the teacher resource. So let's look at an example. This one's from Chapter 4 on Probability and Odds. And in this particular activity, students are going to create video game characters or avatars using rolling a die and then following the guidelines that you see there in section 1. If you roll a 1, 2, or 3, your avatar is male, 4, 5, 6, your avatar will be female, that type of thing. So they can work with their partner to develop the characteristics of their avatar. Then they would share that data with the class, and there is a sample chart there, but again, turn to your teacher resource and you've got a black line master of the exact same chart. So that students can, in that middle data column there, they can tally up, how many students in the class had avatars that were male or female, etc. And that provides, that along with the number of total students in the class, will provide your experimental probability data. Students can then calculate the theoretical probability data and then respond to the questions that are provided in the text. And here in your teacher resource, you'll see detailed responses to those same questions. You'll even see like this, a sample chart, and this one's based on 16 students and the data that they collected there. So the last one I'm going to highlight is mental math and estimation, also great for partners. It encourages students to perform math in their head so that they can be aware of what's a reasonable or a logical answer and practice using some of those shortcut strategies for calculations. A teaching method for this would be think, pair, share. It's another very simple cooperative learning strategy. Essentially, you would direct students to first think, and that's an individual thing. So I want you to look at the mental math problem, think on your own about how to solve it, start working on it. Then you pair them up. Together with your partner, keep working on this problem, and now as a class we're going to share aloud what we've come up with. So here's an example about a surveyor laying out some lots, and you can get your students to think individually about this question, pair up, continue to work on the question, and then share their results with their class, share their process with their class. So unfortunately, due to time constraints, we're going to have to save some of this material here. The idea was to talk about how a teacher might bring some of these ideas together to plan a chapter section, but due to time constraints, we're going to have to save this for another webinar. So I'll just quickly, I was just going to quickly talk about one of the tools in the teacher resource, which is called Planning for Instruction. This is a sample here, and you'll find this at the beginning of each of the chapters in the teacher resource. So it breaks down the activities and some timing, and it can be a very helpful overview to help plan your approach to the chapter. So I'd like to thank you again for participating and hopefully responding. We're going to have questions in just a moment. We hope that this is giving you some great ideas. Before you take questions, just again about the MathWorks 12, if you do want an evaluation copy, they should be available very shortly, and that's the email address to contact. The entire range of resources will be available at the end of this school year, June 2012. A reminder to you, you'll be getting a feedback form, and if you can take a few minutes to fill it out, that will really help us understand how we can best support teachers and plan for any future presentations. So now we'll just take a moment to look at some of the questions. If you haven't already done so, you look into your questions heading there, and you can just type right into that spot there and submit. If you prefer, you can also try sticking your hand up. There's a little button there with a hand and an arrow. So you can try that as well.
I can just take this opportunity to mention that we've now got an order form for MathWorks 12 on our website, so that's pacificedpress.ca. If you look under ordering information, you'll see a MathWorks 12 link. So you've got all the ISBNs and all the prices there, so that if your school is looking to order in the coming weeks, then you've got it all there for you.
There was a question about whether any of the curriculum outcomes was treated as more important than any of the others, or whether some of the chapters were longer because of that. The outcomes were all given, or they're all of the same importance, but some of the chapters are longer simply because the specific outcomes had more achievement indicators within them. So so some of the chapters are significantly longer than others, but not because they're more important, just because there's more to cover.
And we've got a question which reads, I'm a contract teacher, so I move from school to school. Is it possible to get the teacher resources individually, or do I need to order that through a school? All the resources can be bought individually, although I'd recommend that the school actually purchases a copy of the teacher resource or the test bank. They're intended for single school use. So you've got the option there, I suppose.
There's a question, there's a comment that says that there's often not enough questions in the assignments, and whether what the average number of questions is per section of the chapter. The average number is probably around 8 to 12 per chapter, or per section of the chapter in the student resource. On top of that, we do have the workbook. The workbook usually has another, I'd say, 30 or so questions per chapter. So that's there for additional questions if there's not enough in the student resource for you.
And sometimes also in the teacher resource you might find a Blackline Master, that like that remediation one that was shown, where there's extra practice. Basically, if you look in your teacher resource and see if there's something more there.
So there's a question whether the chapter projects cover the entire curriculum. They do. Each one covers each of the specific outcomes of the section. So you can use that and cover the entire curriculum. And as well, if you would like more variety in the projects, each chapter of the teacher resource has an alternative project in there with the same materials, with the same Blackline Masters and support and answers and things like that. So.
Great. Okay. Unfortunately, we're out of time. So if any of you, we haven't got to your questions yet, we will follow up again on email. So thank you again to everybody for attending, and please take a moment to complete those feedback forms. Thank you so much.
The organizer